Hey everybody, Chad Schimmel back in the shop, and today I'm going to be making one of my favorite lower priced fountain and rollerball pens, the Manager pen. Now I like the Manager for a couple of different reasons, and I'll tell you about them right now. One is it's a rollerball or a fountain, which is nice. It's a non-postable pen, which I always like the look of non-postable better, but some people want to post it, so that's a downside, but I like the look. The thing I really like about it is it has a long body, so you get to show off the blank really well. It's the same size cap and body drill bit. So this is a 2764, and you use it for the cap and the body, which makes a slimmer pen, so you don't have a big cap, small body like most of the cap pens. So it just looks really cool, but it also is a very comfortable pen. And for being a lower price fountain pen, it actually writes really well. Most of the time, right out of the package, they write pretty well. With just a little bit of fine tuning on some micro mesh and some cleanup, you can get these to be really, really nice, reliable pens. So those are just a few of the reasons I really like this pen. I'm going to be working on a set today of rollerballs and fountains, so I thought I would take you along. So the ones I'm going to make today are two Spectraply, this brown and gray Spectraply. And then I'm going to be using one of our blanks, the Molten Metals. This is a antique copper, antique silver, antique gold mixture, and it looks really cool. We should get some nice swirls and things once we turn this. So I'm going to start by drilling on the lathe. I'm going to use my SC2 mini chuck with my pen jaws, and I'm going to drill these out. Now I'm going to be drilling about 800 to 900 RPMs. I'm using the Record Power Herald lathe, and the nice thing is I can set the speed before I hit start and fire it up. So I got my 27/64 drill bit, and I'm just going to slowly introduce the drill bit to the blank. Drill bit, this is the blank. Blank, this is the drill bit. Now they've been properly introduced. Whoa. That brad point was jumping all around there in the beginning. Once it gets a hold, we're okay. So you want to crank in, clear your chips, crank in, clear your chips, and just repeat this in and out over and over. Okay, now that that's done, I'm ready to glue in my tubes. So when gluing in tubes, there's a couple of things, and there's some preference, there's some facts, whatever you want to call it. Roughing the tubes. I don't personally rough the tubes. If they're already roughed, like Penn State for example, sends them pre-roughed, no problem. I don't rough them. I've never had a problem with not roughing them. If it works for you, do it. I don't think there's a right or a wrong. I think the more important thing is that you get plenty of glue. If you've ever had a blank blow up, or you hear that tick tick and your blank blows, it's usually an air pocket, meaning you've got glue on your tube and in your blank, but then there's an air pocket, and what's happening is as you turn that blank thin, the air pocket, the material begins to expand and it'll snap, it'll hit your tool, make a snapping sound, and then usually it blows up right after. What the heck? I'm trying to record a video here and they're flying a helicopter. So all that being said, the key is get plenty of glue. I like to use thick mercury. I got this little mini bottle for some reason here. But I cover the tube. I go around like the first half of the tube, getting plenty of glue on. And you notice I just keep spinning it so it doesn't drip. and then I'll rotate it as I go in. If I'm not pushing glue up on the tube as I go in, I didn't get enough glue. But I use the scrap wood to push it in. That seems to give it just the right amount of set in there, and that one is good. So just repeat for the other caps. These are all the caps of the pens that I'm working on. Plenty of glue. If you have extra glue, it's just going to squeeze out anyway, so it doesn't matter. But you can see it kind of building up there, and then pushes it all the way up the tube. Probably the most important thing. Oops. I got the wrong tube there. Alright. I like to hit these with accelerator once they're glued in. Not so much, I'm not necessarily trying to speed it up, although it does. Really, I just want to keep it from dripping all over my equipment and my floor, and that will do that. So now I'll let these sit a little while, square them up, and we're ready to go. I'm going to square up the blanks using the sanding jig. And how this works is it's just the sanding jig with a punch that matches my blank. I should say the tube of my blank. It's mounted to the miter slide with a clamp. And you just slide it in front of your disc sander. Now this sanding jig works for 5-inch up to 12-inch or bigger discs, and it's very simple. You just put the blank on the punch, bring it up, and you just rotate it around, keeping contact on the disc. And you want to check it just to make sure you don't go too far, and you should just see the brass start to get shiny. Alright, so my blanks are squared up, I'm ready to go, and I just want to lay out my bushings with my blanks here so that I make sure I get them right. The Manager has 3 bushings. The 2 far ends are the same, so those don't matter. The one that matters is the middle, the cap. So the thicker is the upper cap and the other one is the lower. Now, this is the setup for doing the whole pen at once. I do not ever do 2 barrels, 2 parts at once. I only do one, so I'll just take this off and set that aside. Do the cap. When the cap is done, I'll take that off, put it back on here, and do the body. The reason I do that is I don't like to extend my mandrel out and basically give it the opportunity to have any kind of play or to bend or anything like that. So I'll do the cap first, just like this, and then I'll switch it out and do the bottom. A couple quick tips here and very important things. Whenever you're turning a pen, a lot of people think you lock your tailstock down and you just wrench on this thing to get it tight. That's not the case. You really want it just snug. So a lot of times, if you've watched any of my videos, you've probably seen it, I'll flick it and that's it. So that's tight enough, lock down my tailstock, you go. If it isn't tight enough for some reason, if it starts slipping, you can always snug it up a little more. But you do not want to ever wrench it. If you're cranking on this handle, you're over tightening it, you're going to have a bend, you're going to get out of round issues, so please don't do that. I also recommend using a Mandrel Saver. This is a really old one, but they're all essentially the same. They slide over the mandrel, and they put the pressure on the bushing versus on the mandrel, which there again can lead to bending or out of round issues. So once it's snug, tighten that up, get your tool rest set. I'm going to be using 2 tools today, both Easy Wood Minis. I'm using the rougher with a radius tip. What a radius tip means is instead of being a flat square insert, it has a slight arc to it, and I find these to just be much more forgiving. I would say I probably turn 90% of my pens with this exclusively, and then I've got a finisher with a negative rake in case I get into any tight, tough spots where I want to be a little more careful. The negative rake is great for being less aggressive, and especially on resins, hard resins, brittle resins, the negative rake is the only way to go. So I've got both those ready, and I can begin roughing. I'm just going to rough it off. Once I've got it round, I can then move my tool and proceed to cut. Once you've got it turned down, you just want to inspect to make sure that your ends match your bushings, and this one looks pretty good. That was very quick. Spectraply turns really nicely. It's smooth and it turns really fast, and you can see that the colors come out really well. You get some nice lights and darks. And when you're just looking at it to start with, it's kind of plain. So on the Manager, the cap has a wider around the center band, narrower at the tip. On the body, it's flat, so I don't have to worry about tapering or any kind of slope on that one. Okay, so I like that shape. It looks good, it matches up with the bushings nice, and now I can sand. What I'm going to do is change my Mandrel and Mandrel Saver out for a live center and a dead center. The reason I like a live center and a dead center is it gives me space around the blank so I don't sand my bushings into my blank, especially with wood. Now if you've not used Spectraply before, you really should, because it's really easy to work with. It's very easy to sand and finish. It absorbs. It's very easy to sand and finish. It absorbs the finish well and builds well. I'm going to use the Mylands friction finish here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to sand this. I've got 600, so I'm going straight from my tool to 600. And I'm going to sand this with the grain side to side. I'm not going to run the lathe, so I'm just sanding with the grain, with the 600 to smooth it off any final bits. If you needed to be more aggressive with the sandpaper, you might want to just make a nice light pass with your tool, and that'll really clean it up. So you shouldn't be taking out any marks with this. You're just knocking off any micro stuff with the 600. And I mean, this is like, it's super smooth. So not much more needed here, just going around the whole tube. I will turn the lathe on once to do the ends. So I folded my sandpaper in half here, and I'll just creep in on the ends just to make sure I don't have any burrs going over the ends here. And that just allows me to clean that up if I did, but it should be all good. So sanding wise, that is it. Super easy. High-tech dusting. I just like to fold up my paper. I'm going to shake up my Mylands here. This is the Mylands Friction Finish, perfect for pens, bowls, whatever. We'll go down to about 700 here. I just put a line on there, and then apply. Now you can go a little faster, and what I like to do is build up heat with this. So I'm going back and forth and I'm trying to feel the temperature with my fingers, and I'm just keeping the pressure on it. And I like to warm it up. And I don't know if it's true, but what I think happens is it sets the finish, or it cures the finish. I don't know what it does. But it seems to work well, and then I can do multiple coats. So I really want to get this kind of warm here, but I don't like to just sit in one spot either. Then I'll put another line of finish and apply it again. And what you'll see is you'll start to see it shine. Now if you have the time, if you can put on one or two, let it sit a day, come back to it if you're working on other stuff, it'll really shine. It shines better the longer you wait in between. But usually I don't have the time or patience to do that, so that's why I do it this way. So that is what I would call good for this. Like I said, if I have more time and I don't need to assemble it right away, I will wait a day. But if I do need to assemble it, it's pretty much ready to go. So now I'll do the top the same way and we'll be ready to assemble. Alright, so we're going to assemble this pen here. I've got my Miles Craft press. I really like this press. I'm going to try to show you overhead here so you can see it. But there's just 4 parts to assemble. There's the cap with the clip, the finial with the clip for the cap. There's the bottom of the body, which is just a little simple button. And then there's the section and center band. Now, one thing that always confuses people with the Manager is, you know, oh, I'm missing a piece because there's one piece. But what you do is just hold the center band and unthread the section like that. And then, of course, that goes with the cap. This is the bottom. You want to remove the fountain section when you press it together, or you'll have a very smushed fountain nib. So I'll do the cap first. I like to do the cap first so I don't forget that this is shaped. This is wider on this end. Wider, not whiter. Wider. And then this end is narrower. So I like to just press things as firm as I can with my hand, and then we'll use the press. And this one does not matter. So we will press this in. And you want to go slow. You put the number of little blocks here that you need to press it. You want to go slow to make sure that everything's going in straight. If not, you can fix it. And that is it. The cap is that easy. Now, one thing with the bottom, if you were lining up grain, you want to thread this in to your cap. Thread that in where it stops. Line up your grain how you see fit, and then press that on as far as you can and unthread it without moving this coupler in your body. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to press this. Oh, my leg is blocking me here. I'm going to press this gently to just so it doesn't move on me. Now it's firm enough. I can put the end cap, and there's no direction on it because it's just the end cap. And I can press those together. And you don't want to overdo it and smush your threads here, so be careful. Thread your section in. And then your cap should line up. Not bad. There we go. So there we have it. So there's the finished Manager pen. This is a gold fountain with the Spectraply. It looks really cool. I'm going to do a whole set of these, so I'll post some pictures with these on our social media, so check that out. If you haven't tried the Manager, I would give it a try. This is one of my favorite pens. That's a low-cost pen that makes a really nice finished product. It's definitely not the top of the line, of course, but it's certainly not the bottom. It's like a real good mid-range. So Manager. It's available in 3 finishes, gunmetal, gold, and chrome, in rollerball and fountain. So check it out. Thanks for watching.